started with all this pandemic and issues around this, but obviously there's been a lot of updates lately, and we've been keeping you up to date on the YouTube channel and everywhere else. So if you guys are just joining for the first time, welcome. We do these weekly live streams, as the name would imply, each and every single week. And today I've actually got a special guest, someone that I've known for I think almost a year. We met at a conference for bloggers, and I saw his channel popping up in the YouTube algorithm recently, and his channel is really exploding. He's a CPA. He's been covering the stimulus, the unemployment updates, all of these different EIDL, PPP loans, everything, really from that perspective of an expert. And so luckily, I know him, and he was gracious enough to come on. So I'm going to bring him onto the screen right now. Logan, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Harry. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to have you, and I see we've got a few viewers that are now, starting to fill into the chat. So I'll show some of their names on the screen. We've got Andrew, Cadest, and Shane. Welcome, everyone. I'm gonna double check my phone, make sure the notification went out, and make sure we're going live and everything's looking good. But yeah, do you want to give a quick little background on you and sort of what you're up to over on your channel?
Yeah, so I'm Logan Allec. I am a CPA. I have my YouTube channel, obviously. Just search Logan Allec in YouTube and it'll come up. I also own the personal finance blog moneydoneright.com. We review stuff like credit cards, investment products, life insurance, tax software,
Yeah.
a lot of good stuff on there. So that's what I'm about.
Cool. Well, I wanted to give a few seconds for people to start filtering in. Looks like we got people now pouring in, 40, 50, 60 people. And I see our first couple comments coming from LinkedIn and Facebook. So hi, Albana and Allison over on Facebook. We are live streaming right now on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. So we're hitting all the platforms today. But if you guys are watching live, you'll be able to leave questions. And we've got a CPA here, and he's not charging us for the time. I'm not going to get an invoice at the end of this, am I, Logan?
No, not at all.
So definitely, if you guys have any, kind of complex questions, we'll get them on the screen and try to ask Logan to make sure that we can, help you guys out. And of course, if you have anything Uber or Lyft specific, we'll also be able to handle that. I'm going to leave a link right now in the live chat to Logan's YouTube channel. And like he mentioned, he also has a website, moneydoneright.com. So I'll leave a link to both of those right now in the live chat, and then afterwards, if you guys are watching, not live, you can check those out too. So welcome all. We got a lot of highs, and I did check. I guess I'll put this question to you, Logan, just generally, because obviously my audience is a lot of Uber and Lyft drivers and gig workers, but you've been talking to I would say thousands of just general people. Like what's the word on the street right now? Like what is the number one issue people are dealing with, and sort of how are you helping answer those questions that they're having?
Well, on my particular channel, the word on the street right now is what's going to be in the CARES 2 package, right? We know that House Democrats, Pelosi and company, are slated to release their plan for CARES 2, the next relief bill, within a matter of days, right? And we think it's going to be huge. We think they're going to ask for a lot, because we know they're probably going to get some, pushback from McConnell in the Senate. We think they're going to ask for a lot for state and local government funding. With all these unemployment claims that have been popping up, some states, their unemployment trust fund is just it's gone bust, right?
Yeah.
So that's one aspect of it. We think they might even ask for more stimulus checks, right? Whether or not Republicans will go for it's a different story, but that is what people are asking me about right now.
Interesting.
Is what's going to be about in that next round of the relief bill.
Yeah, and I should give a shout out to your channel right now, because I've actually been watching it to sort of stay educated and informed. You're doing daily updates on sort of the latest and greatest developments. So if people are interested in sort of knowing, what's being talked about, what's coming, what's next, like what might be out on the horizon, definitely your channel is a great resource. Logan Allec over on YouTube. I see a lot of good questions coming in right now, so we're going to start getting to some of those. One thing that I saw right here that I've been seeing a lot of people on. So people people are getting stimulus checks, people are starting to get unemployment, but what about for those people who aren't getting unemployment? Truth Media over on YouTube says, how do I check on my unemployment benefits, please? So have you been helping people, whether it's stimulus or whether it's unemployment, who should be qualifying? Like, what have you been telling them if they're supposed to be getting unemployment, but they're not, for example, and, they applied or they should have gotten a stimulus and they're not?
Yeah, so I mean, it with the unemployment, it really depends on your state. Unlike the stimulus, where there's that's the national thing. There's the Get My Payment tool, right, where you can log in and try to check the status of it. But unfortunately, it hasn't been working for a lot of people. It's gotten better though.
What's the Get My Payment tool? I know you talked about that on your channel. I typed in Get My Payment tool into Google. Where do I go from there?
Let me do that as well. So the Get My Payment tool is basically the IRS tool that gives you a status of your stimulus payment, right?
Okay.
And it's when it first came out, there were a lot of bugs. People kept seeing this error, payment status not available, right? Some people are still seeing that, but the IRS is tweeting every day, hey, we're making the Get My Payment tool better. In terms of unemployment, right? It's a state by state thing. You got to log into your state's website, and I know, with recently a lot of the state's websites have been struggling to keep up with the number of claims and all that. But I've heard that it's gotten a little bit better in many of those states. But you really just have to log in there and check the status of your claim and look out for that. Look out for that letter. Right.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of folks in some states, who would qualify for the PUA, they applied, right, for the unemployment. They got the denial letter or the zero benefit letter. And then some states are saying, okay, you got to get that letter first and then you got to apply for the PUA. And, California, right, the PUA kind of platform on the website, wasn't even up and running until like late April, I think it was. So, it's hard to really, say specifically what to do because it's very state by state based.
Yeah.
But in general, you should log into your state website just to check on the status.
I'm surprised because I am seeing a few people in here commenting that they haven't even received their stimulus check. I know on your channel, you're actually posting sort of daily polls, asking people, I believe that are you doing sort of daily? Have you got your stimulus check? Or are there some other questions that you're asking? What are those polls you've been asking? Can you maybe kind of quickly share some of the results? Because I think the thing that's important to me, especially, in helping, our viewers and, readers and listeners is that, if no one else is getting, stimulus checks, for example, yet, it sucks, but there's not a whole lot for you to be worried about, right? But if 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% of people start getting it, maybe there's an issue, maybe they don't have your bank account right, but that's when you sort of want to start digging into it. What have you been finding with those polls you've been doing?
So we do a weekly poll on Monday. It's everybody in my audience, have you gotten your stimulus yet? And this past week, for the first time, a slight majority, 51%, actually reported that they had received their stimulus payment as of a couple days ago. Throughout the week, I do other more specific polls. Like, for example, last week, a lot of people on my channel were saying, hey, I'm a parent with dependent children. I got the $1,200 for me, $1,200 for my spouse, but I didn't get the $500 each for my children. So I did a poll about that. And we found that of parents, or it could be grandparents taking care of a child, but of those with qualifying children, about 15% who had received a stimulus payment did not receive the correct amount for their child. This week we did a poll on, what do you think about the IRS asking for the money back for the money they sent to dead people, right? And what do you think? Is that fair or is that not fair? And my audience was about pretty much split. A slight majority, I think it was 54, 56% said, yeah, that's fair for the IRS to do that. 40-some% said, no, that's not really fair. They made a mistake. So, but we are seeing every week a significant jump in the number of people in my audience who have received their stimulus check.
Gotcha. Very, very, very good to know. I think that for those that haven't received the stimulus check, the Get My Payment tool is a good option. But I mean, if only 51% have gotten it, there's sort of a 50-50 chance right now. So, hopefully you're one of those, that are saying yes. But if not, hopefully that'll be coming. And you can also use that Get My Payment tool. I see a few people, and feel free, Logan, if you see any questions that you want me to put on the screen or that you want to take a stab at I can always do that. Otherwise, I've got plenty of questions here for you.
I just see one here from Lawrence Oliver. Hey, anyone know a good online bank I can go to so I can apply for the PPP? There's a lot of those fintechs, there's like, Lendio. I mean, I personally
Lendio is a good one.
Lendio is a great one. I personally use Cabbage, and I got mine approved. Like, I submitted my application like in the evening time, and the next morning I got the email that it was approved. Wow. So,
was this recently or?
Yeah, it was recently. Yeah, it was actually just this week. So,
cool.
Yeah, so the money's still out there for the PPP. A lot of people are like, well, the money's running dry, and it's going quickly. But don't be discouraged if you haven't applied yet. And
I will say, so on last week's YouTube Live with Jay, one of my senior contributors, we talked about Lendio. He applied through Lendio and hasn't gotten his PPP loan yet, but they do seem to be quickly processing. And I did kind of make a joke that I hope that they reach out to me and sponsor the video. I think I tweeted them, nothing yet, but I'm hoping that maybe they can come back to me. So Lendio is definitely a good option. And I mean, have you heard of many, so I got PPP loan as my business, sort of my rideshare business, my media business, right? I applied because I'm technically an LLC as S Corp. Most drivers, though, most Uber and Lyft drivers aren't that. They're typically sole proprietors. Have you found that many people applying for a PPP loan as a sole proprietor are getting it? Because only in the past week, I've only heard of 1 or 2 drivers in that situation actually getting the PPP loan.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is trickier for that sole proprietor independent contractor crowd because they have to submit their Schedule C. Right. Gotcha. And, that's
which they should still have, though, right? I mean,
they should still have that. But from a lending perspective, they'd rather just have the W-3, the 940, actual W-2 wages.
Gotcha.
Right?
So it's
that
easier.
Kind of thing. Easier documentation, right? Which, you probably did for your business, reporting the wages
that
you
paid my tax returns,
yeah, stuff like that. So that's what I'm seeing as well. They're definitely, it seems a lot more streamlined for businesses that have a separate legal entity, a separate tax structure. It seems to be a lot more streamlined for them than for the independent contractor crowd. I mean, I've heard people, even with the lenders, the fintechs I mentioned, I'm seeing folks that independent contractors who applied a while ago still have gotten crickets. While it seems that for those that have that structure set up, it's just an easier underwriting process, I imagine, from the lender's perspective. So
gotcha.
It's unfortunate, but.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. That's very helpful. So I have a question that, has been asked a few times now over the past few weeks, and I'm sort of getting mixed results. So I'm curious to know from you, because I've actually heard differing answers from different professionals. And it has to do with getting, let me see if I can find it. Someone just asked it, but I have it here too, because a bunch of people sent it in. And Dennis says, you can only get one thing. It's either PPP or unemployment. I'm assuming he says not both. So I guess my question to you, Logan, is can you get a PPP loan and unemployment insurance? Because sort of what we've seen happen is, at first, right, there was no unemployment, right? Everyone, especially with the drivers and the independent, contractor crew, they were waiting for these PUA websites to get set up and all that. And the PPP loans, there was all this buzz around the PPP loans. And so I know a lot of people applied for one, and now some a lot of people are starting to get unemployment or PUA, and now they're getting their PPP loans back and saying they were either approved or, they're wondering what they should do. So what have you seen there? Is there like specific guidance from the IRS or anything like that?
I mean, for this matter, I say you should be safe. I mean, collect PUA, but then once you get that PPP money is supposed to be used for payroll, and part of that would be to pay yourself, right? So I think a conservative position would be, don't really double dip there, because when you're going to do your unemployment reporting for your business, they're gonna see that kind of disconnect, right? When you file your unemployment tax form for your business. Of course, I'm speaking from like a business owner's perspective that actually has to do that quarterly reporting, right? You have to submit it to your state, and they're going to say, hey, whoa. So you had all this, you got the, you paid yourself payroll, but then, from the PPP funds, but then you were also collecting PUA. Why is that happening? Will they have the protocols in place to catch that for everybody, or push back on that for everybody? I don't know, because there's just such a high volume here. But I think the conservative position would be, if you got that the PUA probably best to put the pause on once you get those PPP funds, right, which are
Yeah.
supposed to be used to pay payroll and including yourself.
Yeah.
So that's my take on that.
Yeah, and I think that we just released a video this morning. If people are curious, kind of explaining what each of these programs are. So if you guys are wondering what the hell PPP is, maybe you've been living under a rock for the past few months or not watching the channel. We've been covering it extensively. But I think the thing, a lot of times, I really liked your explanation, Logan, because there isn't, like clear-cut rules for a lot of these situations and a lot of these programs because they're so new and they're changing so quickly. And so I think you have to just think about it logically and understand what the potential risk is. So like the example, you highlighted is perfect. Like what is PUA for? It's like that unemployment insurance. Okay, so what is PPP loan for? It's to cover your payroll for 2.5 months, right? So if you're getting unemployment insurance and you're now applying for a PPP loan to also cover your payroll, it seems like you're sort of double dipping, right? So if you did that and got caught and got in trouble, like you probably shouldn't be shocked. It would be kind of like
Right.
the simple way of saying that. Are they going to catch you? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. Andrew here from YouTube, he says, I really don't have faith in the EDD. If they already asked my income and they now have it, it'll conflict with PUA and maybe screw that over or not. We'll see, right? And so I think that's kind of like summing up the fact that, we don't really know, right? I mean, like, you don't know for sure. Like these guys are definitely overwhelmed, and it's going to be a state by state issue. I've even seen some guidance from some people have said that their state, they called their EDD office, I guess, in their respective state, because again, unemployment insurance is a state by state thing, and they were told that they could do PPP and unemployment insurance. So I think that if you want to be safe, probably don't double dip. But if you get confirmation from some official source, and especially if you have it in writing, then it's probably a go, right?
Yeah, that usually tends to be the case. Although I have found that when you call people on the phone at whether it's the IRS or state agencies, sometimes they do say things or even email things that if it's in conflictance with some other official guidance the state or the IRS has, the IRS would say, hey, well, this is the authority. What they said is to be taken as less authority as what the official guidance is. So, but yeah, generally, if you do have an email or something like that, it can really help your case. And of course, some states are more aggressive than others, as we know. And cool. California, where we both live, tends to be somewhat on the aggressive side in terms of making sure that they get their money.
Yeah, I know you and I, and actually, a lot of our contributors are based in California. There's a lot of Uber and Lyft action here in California. Sometimes we get complaints from our viewers that we focus on California too much. So I'm curious to know, have you seen any states specifically that are sort of leading the way when it comes to, getting PUA out or, kind of leading the way and, helping their constituents? Mary here on YouTube says, I just got approved for PUA in Pennsylvania. The cool thing that I've been seeing is definitely a lot of drivers in the past week or two have been saying, that they're now starting to get PUA, especially here in California. So I think that there's a little bit of a bias there. Concerned Parishioner, he's in Illinois. He says PUA applications start on Monday, May 11th. So, some states it hasn't even started yet, which is really rough in that case, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of that technology. You've heard it. They use that old. A lot of the states use that. I think it's called Cobalt or something like that. It's some old programming system that they put in place like decades ago. Like we're talking like 50s, 60s, and it couldn't handle this new, a lot of the new unemployment benefits that were put in place by the CARES Act, right? Whether that's the FPUC, the extra 600, whether that's the PUA for independent contractors, right? And other self-employed individuals just couldn't handle it. And so that's why all these states, they put out all these job postings to find these programmers who knew this kind of older programming language in order to update their systems. And that's what really the setback was. And it wasn't like, and it's states that maybe you think, you might think that the states on the coasts, right, would have like, this updated workforce and all that, but that really wasn't the case. I mean, some of the last states to actually get even the FPUC, the $600 going, they were as diverse as like Connecticut, Kansas. Like it was just kind of random. The states that were kind of the last to get that rolling for folks.
Interesting. Yeah, and I actually, it's funny how how much things are changing from week to week. We've been doing a weekly live show here on YouTube, and just from last week to this week, I don't think we had heard of a single driver getting a PPP loan. And now I'm highlighting a bunch of comments here. A bunch of drivers here in the chat are getting, or at least are telling me that they're getting these PPP loans. So that's very cool to see. I know we've been getting a ton of comments and emails from people that have gotten the EIDL $1,000 grant. So that's been super cool to see. Any updates on some of those fronts that you've seen? Well, I guess like out of the programs that are still out there, if you've got a bunch of Uber and Lyft drivers watching, I think unemployment insurance seems to be, the best, most sure thing, that like the thing to focus on first. Like how would you rank the programs just, quickly for an Uber and Lyft driver?
Yeah, definitely. I think the kind of the first one would be that that unemployment, that FPUC, that $600. I mean, and plus it's the extra 600 is slated to end on July 31st, right? But if you just do the math there, right, 600 a week. I mean, how many weeks is it until July 31st? That's I don't know, roughly another May, June, July,
almost 3 months, yeah,
right? So, let's say it's a little bit more than this, but let's say 4 weeks a month, 4 times 3 is 12 times, 600, that's like thousands of dollars, right? Yeah. So I would say that one is kind of the no-brainer, right? Yeah. Then the EIDL, but the EIDL right now, right? I mean, basically, if you didn't get your application in, a couple of weeks ago, right now you haven't been able to do it. And right now they came out and said, well, it's only for the agricultural companies, right? They might open it up again to everybody, right? But that's kind of easy money. It's like $1,000 with no underwriting, basically, right? I mean, there's like here. Even for people who aren't on their own W-2, they're just an independent contractor. And then finally the PPP, right? Yeah. And I'm glad to hear that some rideshare drivers have finally received it. That's very encouraging, because I haven't I don't think I've spoken specifically to any rideshare drivers, but like we spoke about previously, I know that those who just have Schedule C income, right? It seems that there's been a bit of a lag in getting those approvals in, but it's good to hear.
Yeah, definitely. Very cool. So I think we're almost at the halfway point here. So if you guys haven't taken a moment to give this video a quick thumbs up, definitely go ahead and do that now if you're enjoying the content. Again, we've got Logan Allec, the CPA from the Logan Allec YouTube channel. So you guys can definitely hop over and check out his channel. He's doing daily updates right now on sort of everything that you need to know when it comes to unemployment, stimulus, PPP, EIDL, EDD, pretty much everything. Did I miss anything, Logan?
Well, the unemployment, they have all those acronyms, right? But it's all basically the same thing. It's the unemployment, right? Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, definitely go ahead and check out his channel. We've got him here for a few more minutes if you guys have any questions that you want to ask him, because he is a CPA, very knowledgeable too. I appreciate you coming on, Logan, and really just kind of helping everyone out. Also, if you guys are watching live, definitely appreciate that thumbs up. Give the channel hit the subscribe button if you guys haven't subscribed yet. We're doing weekly lives, and the nice thing too, if you turn notifications on, you'll get a notification about 30 minutes before we go live, and then also a notification right when we do go live. So definitely check that out. And we're releasing, basically daily, almost daily videos right now. I saw we just got our first super chat from Mary, $9.99. All right, she says thank you. I can't put it on the screen for some reason because it's super chat, but do appreciate that, Mary. Logan and I'll cut you a check for that $4.49 and a half later, Logan. Donna, we got our first comment over from Periscope on Twitter. Donna wants to know, what is EIDL? So Donna, we just released a great YouTube video on what all of these different terms are. Unfortunately, as Logan mentioned, though, the EIDL is kind of dried up right now unless you're in the agricultural space. Thomas says, thanks to Jay's lead with Lendio, I got my PPP. So that's definitely good to hear. I've got a good question for you here, Logan, that a bunch of people have been asking all over the place, and unless you see anything that you want to tackle first, I think this might be a good one to take next. You see anything you want to answer?
Let me see. No, I don't really see anything specific.
Yeah. Muniba asked about the PPP and unemployment. So we just answered this a few minutes ago, so you'll be able to catch it when we do the replay. Muniba, we just answered that question, though, so you can definitely take a look. If you guys are joining midstream, then you can always rewind and sort of rewatch this stream. Probably YouTube is the best spot because you can see all the live chat happening there. We've got a bunch of comments. And Rideshare Lisa wants to know, what is the email address, Harry? Because I don't think you got my question. If you're asking for my email, if you guys have any questions, you can always email me, harry@therideshareguy.com. And yeah, as Mary said, double dipping would be a no-no. So that's sort of the short answer to that question. And Katist, okay, I appreciate this question because this is sort of what I've been wanting to ask you, Logan, is basically, so there's two situations. So the first one is, if you are receiving unemployment benefits, basically, whether it's PUA or, regular unemployment insurance, and you start working in the gig economy and, making money with Instacart because, hey, you haven't got your unemployment, you need money right now, right? Which I think a lot of people are in that situation. They have unemployment insurance that's due to them, but they have bills due right now. How does that affect your unemployment if you are, making a few $100 here and there?
Yeah, so I mean, the Department of Labor came out with that guidance, specifically for rideshare drivers. Basically said, yeah, I mean, you can be still eligible, for the unemployment, the PUA, right? Even if you're still making money on the side as a ride sharing service, right? The requirements are, you basically, just broadly speaking, have you been affected, right? Has your ability to earn income been negatively affected by the crisis, right? If the answer is yes, even if you're still making this money on the side driving for Uber or whatever, I would say go ahead and apply, right?
Interesting.
And I can find out that Department of Labor guidance and put a link to it later in the comments.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because, I mean, I guess, when you think about it generally, right, like unemployment insurance has traditionally worked where, okay, if you lose your job or you lose your pay, you now have this unemployment insurance. But as you start working and as you start making money, your unemployment insurance is reduced, right? That's sort of how unemployment insurance has worked. Is that right? And now I think, I sort of was thinking that same concept would apply to PUA, but it sounds like since we're in sort of unique times and a unique situation, that's maybe not the case.
I mean, a lot of states, and this is a state by state thing, but they're waiving some of their traditional, unemployment requirements. Like the big thing right now is, okay, well, going back to work, right? Or do I have to look for work, right? Yeah. And a lot of states are, because of what's going on, have waived that requirement.
I saw that was waived.
Yeah. So in some states, yeah. So like you said, these are kind of unique times. So some of those kind of rules, those hard and fast rules that we thought about when we used to talk about and think about unemployment, they're a little looser right now.
Interesting.
So yeah.
Yeah.
I would
so
say,
that's interesting. I mean, I guess I think this is a little complex. So just to sum it up, right? If I'm an Uber or Lyft driver right now, and I kind of want to go out and I'm applying for unemployment and PUA, obviously. But let's say I decide to go switch over to Instacart and make some money right now, or Postmates and DoorDash. That money can basically be on top of whatever I'm getting from the PUA in the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear that you can still do these ride shares and collect the unemployment if you were adversely affected by the current crisis. And thinking broadly,
pretty much everyone is, right?
Who hasn't been adversely affected by this, right? This has really affected our lives significantly. So with unemployment, if you've been negatively affected economically in terms of your ability to earn income, I mean, just you should apply and let the state tell you no.
So okay, so that was the first level of the question. The second level of the question, and definitely feel free because I know we're sort of getting this will be the last question that kind of gets into the weeds. But the other thing we've heard, there are a lot of drivers who work a full-time or maybe a W-2 job and then do the gig economy on the side. So Faisal says, I have a question. I had to apply unemployment as a private contractor, but they got it from W-2. which was something I only worked for 1 month. How can I change it? And basically, I think this specific question and other questions we've gotten have kind of been asking what happens if, I have a regular W-2 job, but I'm also driving for Uber and Lyft on the side, and that Uber and Lyft income has obviously been affected or reduced. Am I still eligible for that PUA? What do you think in that situation?
So, sorry, which question was this? Was this?
This is one that I kind of came up with on my own.
Okay, yeah. I mean, the PUA, it's if you even get even if your normal unemployment benefits are reduced,
Yeah.
right? You can have you'll still get the $600 a week, the PUA,
Yeah.
right? So like even if the EDD comes back and you're making more money or something, you got and your benefits are reduced, you'll still get the $600 a week PUA, right? Even if you just get a little bit of the normal unemployment benefits.
Interesting. So
that
could basically like your W-2 job could reduce your normal like unemployment benefits, right? Because you're working, but the PUA is sort of like the special program that's basically giving everyone a free $600 if you've been affected, right?
Yeah, basically, yeah. So I think that's pretty. It's very generous. I mean, for those on unemployment.
Yeah, and I think again, it is tough because it's a state by state issue, and I think again, right, like a lot of times, like as long as you're being honest on a lot of these applications, right, and as long as you're not lying, you're not gonna, I don't think anyone's gonna be coming after you, as long as you're sort of honestly answering all of these questions, and sort of like you said with the PUA, right, this is sort of a federal program, so the money's not even coming from the state, I think, in that situation, right?
Yeah, and I mean with all these things, right, the EIDL, the PPP, the unemployment, it's make a good faith effort to fill out the applications accurately.
Yeah.
And to your best knowledge, and see what happens. I mean, I'm not saying this is right, but I know some people in the EIDL, like they're like the number of employees, right? It was kind of loosey goosey about that, but it's just a lot of the oversight here isn't there. I know a lot of your readers are probably, or your viewers are probably in California, and California can be very strict with their EDD, but I know in other states that things aren't that way, and they're even a little bit more lax and loose about things right now. So
yeah. Interesting. Well, definitely appreciate all of the knowledge you've been sharing. How are you doing on time over there? You want to stick around for a few more questions, or you about ready? I know you've got kids to get to.
Yeah, I can stick around for a couple more, sure.
All right, sounds good. Any questions that you saw on the screen that you'd like to answer, or that you thought might be interesting?
Let me see here. Worth remembering the maximum anyone could get in state employment is $450 a week. So states have their maximum. I mean, $450 a week isn't a lot, and you have to think with the $600 PUA, that's more than the maximum like state unemployment. Right. So, like we said, it's pretty generous. Let's see. I can scroll, right? So let me scroll.
Yeah, feel free to take a look at a couple questions. I saw we got another super chat of $1 from Edgar Dino, so thank you for that. Let's see.
Maybe certified. I think I was late to the party. Good luck, guys. I saw one question when you posted. I think somebody was asking about like Uber and Lyft, like bankruptcy or something like that. Is when you ask for people's questions, and I mean, no one kind of knows the future, but I will say a lot of these companies, I think a lot of people when they think of bankruptcy, right, they think like, oh crap, they think like the Monopoly guy with like nothing in his pockets, know, but when in a business context, Chapter 11, oftentimes when they say, oh, this business is going bankrupt, it basically means you're just restructuring their debts and negotiating with their creditors, right? Yeah. So, when you hear about, oh, this company's going bankrupt, that company's going bankrupt, that's what it means. Gotcha. So, I think that was an answer to that question. What were the other questions on there? I think someone was asking about his PPP application, his Schedule C. Line 31, he said it was a loss. And yeah, if that's a loss, the lenders aren't going to, they're trying to make this as easy for themselves as possible with the PPP, right? And if they see that line 31 is a loss, right, even though it includes stuff like home office and all that stuff, they're just going to, nix it. Right.
So that's basically saying that, if you're a driver and you earn $10,000 in gross income, but you had a bunch of expenses, mileage and all that, and you kind of ended up reporting a loss on your taxes on your Schedule C, which, some drivers do if they're really good at tracking all of their expenses and have a bunch of expenses, they might actually be reporting a tax loss even though they're making money. In that situation, it sounds like it'd be tough to get the PPP.
Yeah, it'd be tough in that case. I think there's some other good questions on that one. I think that was it.
Okay.
So, I'm going to keep looking in the comments here.
William asks, I haven't gotten my PUA yet. Should I cancel my PPP? I guess this is sort of similar to the question we answered earlier about kind of doing both at the same time, right?
Yeah. I would wait until you actually got some money in before. Let's see, haven't gotten PUA yet. Should I cancel my PPP? Okay, so you haven't gotten the PUA money. I wouldn't cancel your PPP. No, just if you haven't gotten PUA and you haven't gotten PPP, don't cancel your PPP application because basically you want to be a little, selfish is the right word, but just look out for your own best interest, right? You don't want to double dip, but wait until you get at least one of those before canceling anything. And I know
Faisal is asking about the $600 being extended, which you just covered on your channel. So if you guys want to know about the latest updates, definitely check out Logan's channel. I saw Nick is over on Facebook. He says, I moved to New Jersey from Las Vegas. Where would I apply for unemployment? So I guess that's sort of a specific question there.
Yeah, that's very state by state, but you would, most states you would look at, even wages you earned elsewhere, even if you weren't paying into that particular state at the time.
Oh, really?
But usually in states in their unemployment applications, they will ask you that question.
Gotcha.
Right? I've done a walkthrough of a couple, a few states, the unemployment applications, and they usually ask you, hey, how much of these wages were earned in Florida? Right. And did you earn any wages in another state? And the state will do the calculation.
Gotcha. I saw a couple questions come in here about hazard pay. And I don't know if David is the one asking all the questions about hazard pay, if there's multiple people asking about hazard pay. Do you know what hazard pay is? Or, I guess I've heard this term thrown around a lot. I don't know if it's an official term or just sort of, hey, the people that are on the front line should get paid more. What do you think?
Yeah, the whole hazard pay thing for frontline workers is a big topic of conversation right now. We might actually see some of that in CARES too. Both Schumer and Romney have talked about this, and when they're describing, who would be eligible for this kind of hazard pay, they talk about healthcare professionals, food professionals, but they also say transportation industry folks. So, of course, it would have to be, that's very vague, right? Very broad.
Yeah.
Would rideshare drivers, be considered part of the transportation? I think that's, conceivable, right? To get that extra, that extra boost. So we're just gonna have to wait and see for that on a national level. I know states, I don't know if there's maybe some states out there that have, implemented specific programs for those types of folks. But in terms of the national thing, we're gonna have to see what the folks in Congress put out there.
Yeah, and I guess similarly, does the EIDL loan or grant, does it affect your ability to receive PUA? We've got Mustafa on YouTube asking this question, and I know Mark is also asking, basically, again, it's like, is this $1,000, do you think it's going to affect any state unemployment, or PUA that you might be receiving?
I wouldn't be too worried about just $1,000.
Yeah.
To be honest. Yeah. So if you got $1,000, I wouldn't be too concerned because the PPP there's a little bit more underwriting there, right? Yeah. And there's specific guidelines on what those proceeds are to be used for, and it's mostly to be used for payroll. Mm-hmm. The EIDL grant, it's a little more loosey-goosey. And for many people that are watching this right now, it's only going to be $1,000. So Yeah, I would look out for your own best interest. If you got the EIDL, great, and go for the PUA as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, definitely. No, that's good advice. And I think that just definitely with a lot of these programs, it's sort of like you said, I like the way you put it. You got to look out for your own best interests and also just kind of, put as many lures into the pond as you can. And hopefully you'll start getting money, because it does seem like the EIDL was basically a free $1,000 for everyone that did apply. And the PPP has a much, stricter or tougher underwriting process, like you mentioned. So definitely good info. I'm gonna start opening it up. If you guys do have more broad Uber, Lyft questions, I think I'll start answering some of those. I saw some of those about Andrew was asking. And feel free, Logan, if you want to stick around, I'll even let you take a crack at some of these Uber and Lyft questions if you're feeling it. I don't think you've never driven for Uber and Lyft, have you?
I've never driven for Uber and Lyft, but I am a very experienced rider.
Okay.
So before I went full time with MoneyDoneRight.com, I was at an employer where they covered all my Uber and Lyft, and I got in a car accident where my car was totaled. I got the insurance check because the other driver was at fault, but I was like, hey, if I got this perk
Nice.
of every day.
So you've
I took
talked
the
to a
train
lot of
sometimes.
drivers.
What's that? So yeah, I've had a lot of conversations with Uber and Lyft drivers over
Yeah.
the years. So never driven, but I'm a very experienced rider.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah.
And I see a couple people. Hans mentioned a question he had earlier, and then also Scott mentioned a question at 3:05. So if you guys can just re-ask any questions that we missed, feel free to just re-ask, or you can also leave a comment once this video is over, and I'll hop in there later and answer any questions you might have, because we're getting like hundreds of comments coming in right now, so it's sort of hard to catch everything. But I wanted to answer this question from Andrew. It was sort of more of a statement, but I'll turn it into a question. He says, I don't think rideshare will get back to normal in 2020, only when there is a vaccine, so get used to things the way they are. So, basically what Andrew is asking, is kind of how, what will Uber and Lyft look like in the future, sort of as things start to recover. And I think one thing I've been saying, and I'd love to get your perspective as a passenger in a second here, Logan, is that we don't know when things are going to get back to better. No one really knows when, but we do see that eventually, things are going to have to start opening up here in Los Angeles. They're going to open up golf courses. They're going to, open up small things and sort of test the waters. And so as things get back to normal, I think it's a really interesting question to sort of know, will Uber and Lyft be busy again, basically? And I'll be honest, I think it's going to be a long time before Uber and Lyft are back to kind of pre-COVID levels, before they're back to the same kind of ride volume. I think that they might, as things start opening up, they could get to 50, 60, 70%. But I think passengers are going to be very, kind of conscious of the safety of the mode of transportation they're getting into. We talked about this on a prior YouTube live, public buses, that seems like pretty dicey. Hundreds of people coming in and out, not cleaned super frequently. An Uber and Lyft car, maybe there's 10 to 15 people a day. Hopefully the driver does a good job. Probably safer than public transit, but your personal car is probably the most safe, when you think about the fact that you're the only one in it. So Logan, I'll ask you, as you need to start going places in the future, are you going to be taking Uber and Lyft? Or are you going to look to drive yourself, since I know you're an avid passenger? And also ask the question to the audience and see what they say too.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've just played by ear, but I think you're spot on in saying that, not sure whether it's going to bounce back to the way it was, because two reasons. One is, like you said, you're in a confined space with this other individual and that you don't know a whole lot about. So I think there will just be that inherent fear of that. And also, it might be a long time before we have as many places to go as we did, a year ago, right? Because these reopenings are going to be gradual, right? And could there be a second wave of this? I mean, who knows? So I think that was spot on.
Yeah, and I mean, Uber and Lyft actually both recently, I'll put this comment on the screen from R Smart. He says that, now both companies are actually requiring face coverings for both drivers and riders, which seems like sort of a no-brainer. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, may take some time. And then the other thing too that I'll mention is that, there's 30 million unemployed people right now. And you can kind of imagine if you're unemployed and don't have a job, that, driving for Uber and Lyft or, working in the gig economy. That's like really how these services, are kind of built for, right? It's like, hey, get onboarded quickly. So I think there is, unfortunately for existing drivers, there's gonna be a lot more competition in the future. So I think it's gonna kind of behoove you to sort of, kind of drive smarter, sort of think about the best times and places. Because if you just go out and kind of compete with everyone, it's gonna be, it's gonna be a little tougher, right? So we'll see what happens there. As Crinkle said, he said, have you heard that Uber is making us wear masks now? It'll be a requirement for picking up passengers. How would they know that? However, selfies every day for you to drive for Uber to verify. And just at a high level, like I think without getting too much into like the politics of the mask and all that, I'll just say I think masks are like a pretty, it's not that big of a deal to wear a mask, and it seems like a pretty good thing if both driver and passengers are wearing it. As far as how, Uber is going to verify it, I mean, they've talked about, potentially making drivers do little selfie checks. So, drivers right now have to sometimes do a selfie check to verify that they are the one on their account. So I imagine they could probably figure out some technology to make sure you're wearing something over your face. But I think it's going to be on drivers too to kind of enforce it, similarly to how, minors, people under the age of 18 aren't supposed to ride Uber or Lyft. I think it'll be on drivers to also enforce, hey, like sometimes you might have to be a little bit of a dick and say, like, if you don't have a mask on, you're not going to be able to ride. What do you think, Logan?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's spot on. Just thinking about kind of how this is all going to affect our lives. One thing that Pelosi mentioned on MSNBC yesterday is tracing, right? Tracing everybody who you've been in contact with. So, if there comes this kind of technology, right, about, tracing to say, okay, well, you've been in contact with this person who could potentially be infected. That could be another thing. Before you get into this car, you got to check your, maybe, your app or whatever it is, just to make sure that, you haven't been in contact with, potentially exposed. So I think, kind of like 9/11 changed air travel. I think this COVID thing, it's going to change how we interact with people, how we share space with people, right? And obviously with Rideshare, you're sharing space with another individual, a complete stranger, for for a certain period of time. So I think there will be just the way we do things, the way we live life will definitely be affected.
Yeah, definitely. And Creekside says it should be a requirement for riders to wear a mask, but how do they verify it? Should we get a $10 cancellation fee if I drive to them and they have no mask? So I don't know if you know this, Logan, but if you're a minor, for example, and Uber used to have this option. I don't know if they still had it, but you could actually cancel on the passenger if it was a minor, if they were under 18, because they weren't supposed to be riding. So it could be interesting if, like Creekside says, if you get to a passenger and they don't have a mask, you take a quick picture of them, send it into Uber, and get your $5 or $10 cancellation fee. But again, like, I don't know, I wouldn't have a problem with that. So, and I think kind of what you said, I like this comment here from Andrew on YouTube. He says, deliveries are popping. I made $40 in 1 hour. So he's talking about, food delivery services, I'm assuming. And he says, it's mainly the tips, not even the base pay. Delivery may be my new normal. And the reason why I wanted to highlight this is, we talked a lot about the fact that, Instacart and a lot of these food delivery services are popping and you can make a lot of money there. Of course, there's a lot of variability still, but we are starting to hear from a lot of drivers that, Instacart, it's now tougher to get a shift. There's there's a lot more competition, and on the food delivery services, the same. So if you sort of know what you're doing and you're kind of an expert or a veteran, you can still make money, but it's still like, I think it's important to get in on some of these services first. Like when you were talking about, right? Like if you are applying for EIDL right now, it's too late, right? But when you watch, when we released our EIDL video and probably your EIDL video, all of those people who took action as soon as they saw it got the money. So it's sort of like, I don't know, and a lot of times I think about like, what's the downside? Like it takes 5 minutes to apply for EIDL, go for it. If you get it, great. If not, no worries.
Yeah, and oftentimes, a lot of times, the early bird gets it.
Exactly.
I had a question for you, if you don't mind, about ride sharing.
Sure.
And not ride sharing, actually food delivery. We have a lot of options when it comes to food delivery, right? Yeah. Uber Eats, Postmates, DoorDash. I mean, which one is best, I guess, for the driver, or is that kind of hard to say? Because that's something my wife and I wonder, because we order a lot of like delivery, and we want to know, because we read stuff online about how the tips work and all that. I mean, do you have a take on that, or?
Yeah, I think, I'll put this question out to the audience too, is sort of which food delivery company do you guys think treats its workers the best? And, I will say, I don't know that there's one that kind of
Mm,
rises above the rest. Instacart, there's drivers making, like we posted a screenshot last week of a driver making $2,000 a week on Instacart, but at the same time, there were workers striking on Instacart, because they
mm,
weren't getting the right PPE and, felt that they weren't getting enough. So I think that there's challenges, with all of the platforms. I haven't seen one that necessarily treats its workers better than the others. And I think that, what I would look to as a consumer and sort of what I would recommend to you is sort of just spread the love and, maybe even like,
mm.
shift towards like sometimes the smaller, platforms, for example, like maybe the Postmates or the Caviars, so just to kind of, I think the more competition, the better, right? If drivers have all these different apps that they can work for, I think that's, generally a better thing. And same thing on the customer side. I see a few comments coming in, and I think it's going to be sort of what I said. Some people, Eclipse says DoorDash is the best. Cushstrain says Grubhub. Actually, we do see a few Grubhubs, and this is actually one of the services that I haven't actually ever. I've delivered for Postmates, I've delivered for DoorDash, Uber Eats. The only service I've never delivered for is Grubhub, and we've got a lot of folks in here saying that they like Grubhub, so that's interesting. So maybe Grubhub, again, that's another option. The driver sensei says it depends on the demand of each platform. Postmates is awesome in some areas, and in Virginia, Postmates sucks. So we'll see. All right, Scott says, can you answer my question? I typed it out twice at 3:05 and 3:13. I'm going to find your question right now, Scott, and I'm going to make sure we get to it. Let's see. Okay. Scott says, I found his question here. Let me pull it up on the screen. This might be a good one. You can help me with, Logan. He says, I drove for Uber full time for 3 years. I worked January 2019 to October 2019. So that's last year. I had an injury, haven't worked since October 2019 now, except a couple rides here and there. Once Arizona is ready for PUA on 5/12, do you think I'm eligible? And I've actually gotten a few questions like this. And, there are a lot of people that drive for Uber and Lyft or, work for these gig economy platforms, and then they quit, or, I don't know, they get deactivated or whatever might happen. So we've gotten a lot of questions from people who kind of used to work for Uber and Lyft and now wondering like, hey, there's this PUA. Can I get in on this? What do you think?
I think for most states, it's if you're eligible for that state unemployment,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then you would be eligible for the PUA, right? That's how
Yeah.
that works. And so how most states work is they have this base period, right?
Mm.
And you'd be looking at, and usually the base period would be like, the last calendar
Yeah.
year, say.
Mm.
And if you have sufficient earnings in that those base periods, which it sounds like you would, then I would say just apply.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of tricky, because you weren't really directly affected. It sounds like something else caused you to stop
Right.
driving. So I guess I'd be curious to know, did you apply for any benefits at that point when you had the the injury or the issue?
Yeah.
And if not, I guess why was that the case?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think like a lot of times, like you said, like when you're going through these applications, like it sort of, qualifies you or disqualifies you on your own, right? Like you go through the application and it'll say, okay, it'll ask you for your base period and say, okay, when was the period, so if it goes back a full, year, I guess like 1 year, so 2019, then you might be eligible in that case. But if it's only, this calendar year 2020, then you might not. So I think a lot of times if you go through these applications, it'll sometimes answer it, for yourself.
Yeah, and I mean, he said that he picked up. I think I don't see the question, but he said he picked up some rides this year.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
then maybe it's not as much now, maybe due to COVID.
Yeah.
And,
Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? Like if you did 5 rides and now you're doing 0, that's less, right?
hey, yeah, I mean, yeah, you were directly affected by COVID. That's PUA right there. Yeah. So yeah.
Cool. Well, we'll just do 1 or 2 more questions here. Really appreciate your time, Logan, and answering all these great questions. Like I mentioned, we've got we're actually almost up 200 people watching live on YouTube, and we've got a bunch of others on LinkedIn and Facebook page and Twitter. So only 55 upvotes. So if you guys are enjoying the comment, definitely go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. If you're watching live on YouTube, you might have to just close out the chat for a second, and then that will allow you to give a thumbs up, and you can subscribe subscribe to the channel too if you're not, and definitely check out Logan's channel. He's on Logan Allec on YouTube, or you can also go to his website, moneydoneright.com. I see a bunch of likes coming in now, so appreciate you guys for all that. Hans, I wanted to answer his questions. I know he asked it a couple times. He was asking about EDD in California. They seem to have lost his original application info. I started a week ago and tried to finish last night, couldn't find my info, had to re-register. So, I think with this question specifically, and just others, for people who maybe submitted an EIDL or, PPP, if they haven't heard back on anything, have you been recommending to people that they should submit another application or just try to figure out what went wrong with their original one?
Well, I know with the EDD, you get and with most states, you get a login, right? So I guess, yeah, I would be kind of, I guess the question I would ask is, could you find that? To start if you say you submit your application, that means you must have had an email address and password associated on the EDD website. So I guess my question would be, can you find that? Because there's no way you could have, I think this is the case in most states. You need to set up a login first. So I guess I would be wondering about that. But if something happened, there's some glitch, and your state never got you registered with your email address and password, then you have to you go through it again. But I would definitely double check on that.
Yeah. And this one's interesting. Sarah over on YouTube, who I think is actually a fan of you, Logan. I think she left a comment earlier that said she was a big fan of your channel. I don't know if I put it up on the screen, but she says, a friend has not filed in 5 years. Will she get a stimulus check? And by the way, a friend has not filed in 5 years. Will she get a stimulus check without filing? She's scared she'll get audited if she files now or owes a lot of money. What do you think there? That's a tough one.
Yeah, that is definitely tough. But I have to say, look, if she had a filing requirement, she should file, and she would get a stimulus check. And we know that back taxes do not affect the stimulus check. If she hasn't filed because there's no filing requirement, she can just use the IRS non-filers tool. But either way, yeah, she should either get in compliance with the IRS, and then kind of as a bonus for that, you'll get the stimulus, or if she just doesn't have to file, she should still file non-filers to get the stimulus.
Yeah. Very cool. Cool. And Kush also says, smack that like button, folks. Not smash, as our buddy Graham Stevens likes to say. He's saying to smack the like button. I like that. I actually might steal that. So I think we got a lot of questions. Unless there's anything you saw, Logan, that you want to answer before we wrap up, I think we're going to go ahead and put a cap on this one. If you guys do have any questions, definitely feel free to leave a comment on any of our YouTube videos. You can also send me a personal email, harry@therideshareguy.com, and you can check out Logan's channel over at Logan Allec on YouTube. I'm going to go ahead and leave a link right now. I think if you guys are bored and have nothing to do, you should hop over to his channel right now. He's got and watch his latest daily update video. Anything you want to mention before we sign off here, Logan?
No, just got to keep an eye on Capitol Hill. We know that state and local governments are going to be a big push by the Democrats. And my latest video is, hey, if Democrats are successful in getting all the state and local government funding, is it possible that we might see more benefit to the state level, right? Stimulus checks coming from the states or the cities or local governments, right? There are examples of that right now, cities doing that for their residents. So, just food for thought.
Very cool. All right. Well, appreciate you coming on. And if you guys were watching live, definitely go ahead and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed the content. If you're on YouTube, definitely subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, because we'll be going live each and every single week. We're releasing daily updates, and pop over to Logan's channel to check out all his great tax content. All right. Appreciate it, Logan. And thank you to all the drivers, all the gig workers out there, especially if you guys are still driving, still delivering. I know there are a lot of people like myself. I know Logan's got a baby too, so I bet he's ordering a lot of food delivery. And we appreciate, if no one's told you thank you yet, I just want to say thank you guys. We appreciate all the hard work that you're doing, and we'll be here to help you get that PUA, get that unemployment, get that EIDL, get that PPP, get whatever future stimulus checks our government, our great government is working on, and we'll take care of that. So thank you very much, Logan. Take care.
Yeah, thank you, Harry. Bye.
All right.